Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to MWC. It's good to see folks face to face. And for those that are joining us virtually, welcome. We have an exciting time. We will have an exciting time today with the topic Openrain. But before we do that, Openrain has brought us innovation, a lot of benefits, a lot of opportunities. But let me introduce to you from Orange, Francois Moore de Saint Martin is the VP of Strategy at Orange. And he will talk to us a little bit about the kind of partnership that telcos and non-telcos need to put in place to be successful with Openrain. Francois, please.
Thank you, Femi. I'm lucky I can take it off for a minute. You must be jealous. So indeed, I would like to share with you some views about the new infrastructure partnerships between telcos and non-telcos that can take place today in the telecom marketplace. Just to start with, 2 words about Orange. So as you know, Orange is one of the most important telcos in the world with over 40 billion euro revenue. We have B2C business in 26 countries and almost 260 million customers. We have also global B2B activities with Orange Business Services. We have also global wholesale activities with Orange International Carriers. That is part of the Wholesale and International Networks division I'm in charge of strategy of. Well, as Femi said, we share a common challenge with digital inclusion and coverage that we want to address with the different levers. There are different levers to activate, including Openrain, of course, that we will discuss later on during this session. But we have another lever, which is the way we cooperate in the marketplace. Ericsson reports that global 4G population coverage was over 80% at the end of 2020, and they forecast 95% by 2026. How shall we do that? Well, you all know RAN sharing, which is an effective way to accelerate rollouts and enhance the coverage. But today, I'd like to draw your attention to other cooperation models leveraging initiatives of telecom infrastructure by non-telco players. Non-telco players, yes. Telecom infrastructure is a telco business, isn't it? Who's else? Actually, digital inclusion is a major topic for many stakeholders, for the public authorities, for the hyperscalers, such as Google, Facebook, and so on. Digital inclusion is far too serious to be entrusted to telcos and MNOs only. Telecom infrastructure is essential for digital inclusion, and numerous players launch initiatives, primarily governments and public authorities. For instance, in Europe, they organize a wide zones coverage. They fund FTTH deployments, such as, in France, 13 million households in public initiative networks. Same in Africa, for instance, for backbones and backhauls, which are essential to the success of 4G and 5G. According to public institutions and international donors, over $20 billion of public money shall be invested in telecom infrastructure in Africa by 2030 to deliver the connectivity for all objectives. These initiatives from infra projects are not only from public players. Hyperscalers invest in subsea cables, 16 by Google, 13 by Facebook, etc. And we could also have a look to power. Oops, I'm lost. I'm sorry. And we could also have a look at power companies and railway companies. So what does it mean for telcos? Risk or opportunity? On the risk side, it may be additional competition and even possibly an unfair competition due to public subsidies. But let me tell you the story of Orange with public initiative networks in France. When local authorities started to issue RFPs for public-private partnerships for FTTH deployments in rural areas, Orange was very cautious. But today, this has appeared to be a major value creation opportunity for Orange. Orange Concession, our fiber core for these public-private partnerships, is valued over 2.6 billion euro. And it is also valuable for Orange as an ISP, since we don't need to deploy our own FTTH infrastructure in these areas to serve our customers. Therefore, I believe that we should have a look at this initiative as opportunities for telcos and also for the owner of the project. So it's quite obvious that telcos can help the success of these projects. We bring the expertise, and we are also the primary customers of this infrastructure. On the other hand, these infrastructure are useful to us. So to keep the promises, we need the proper set of towers, backbone, backhauls, international capacity, and these projects, initiated by third parties, can provide us with the infrastructure we need. So let's have a look to the main stakeholders of this telecom infrastructure. They all stand for digital inclusion. However, their priorities are different. MNOs optimize the deployment costs. We want to expand the customer base and to defend the ARPU with data, 4G and 5G. Governments want to ensure the fast deployment of mobile very high broadband, and they want to avoid a digital divide between the dense areas and the rural areas. Regulators need to ensure competition and to promote open and neutral infrastructure. Local authorities want to increase their territory attractiveness and develop smart cities. And also, let's have a look to the international donors, World Bank, African Bank for Development, European Investment Bank. They want to fund infrastructure that would not be deployed without their support, that would not be deployed with private investment by the MNOs. So this, if we want to set up successful projects, we need to align these different perspectives and priorities. So what does success look like for this project? First and foremost, the infrastructure has to be used. We estimate that at least 20,000 kilometers of backbone in Africa are not used or are underused because they have been built without a proper anticipation of their technical and commercial operations. Telcos are the primary clients of this infrastructure. They know how this infrastructure will fit in their plans. They have geo-marketing skills. Some telcos have a strong background in the wholesale market, and they know how to build successful services catalogs and how to serve wholesale clients. These ones have a track record of offering neutrality. A basic underlying condition is that it has to work, and so that the operators can run services on this infrastructure. And the telcos bring all the know-how to do that. You know, when the one building the networks is not the one running the network, a full due diligence is needed. And we have seen in some projects that these steps bring additional costs and delays in the project. It has to contribute to the coverage and so to the digital inclusion. And overbuilding private investment is in general not the best way to enhance the coverage and for digital inclusion. So the complementarity between private and public investment is crucial to achieve these objectives in the best possible way. The project has to be sustainable. We built infrastructure for decades, and we also all want to be compliant with the GSMA commitments to carbon neutrality by 2050, and even try to do it earlier. And last but not least, the partnerships have to be based on a fair split of risks and rewards. And it's a specific know-how to design such public-private partnerships in the long run. And some telcos have a significant experience in this PPP for telecom infrastructure. So this experience is also an asset for the overall success of these projects. So to conclude this discussion, the cooperation between telcos and project owners can secure the success for both project owners and telcos. Telcos can make the project successful while securing the infrastructure they will rely on to serve their customers. So project owners and telcos can together address successfully the coverage challenge for digital inclusion. So all telcos have an infrastructure strategy. And in my mind, such kind of projects have fit completely in the telco's infrastructure strategy. And it can effectively complement the rollout of Openrain technologies, as it will be discussed in a minute. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Francois. Thanks, Francois, for bringing to focus what we need to do from a telco and non-telco point of view to be able to be successful with Openrain. I want to introduce to you now Eugenia Jordan from Parallel Wireless. She's a VP. She's going to help us to frame what are the key enablers for Openrain, what are the benefits, and then what is the evolution, because we are trying to set the stage for the discussion that we're going to have shortly. Eugenia Jordan.
Hello, everyone. I'm old. Now, I have your attention, so let me finish that sentence. I'm old enough to remember how software and hardware disaggregation changed two market segments before they started disrupting telecom. So, let's take a short walk down the memory lane and look at the key enablers of how software and hardware disaggregation disrupted those two market segments. Moore's law first disrupted consumer. And then, as the compute power fell, it started disrupting enterprise. So many software companies were born. And about 10 years ago, software and hardware disaggregation entered telecom with EPC. RAN started benefiting from the IT principles when RAN hardware got standardized. And this is how Openrain was born, as a pure necessity to drive the innovation in the RAN to reduce the cost. So, many vendors, software and hardware, and other ecosystem partners are working to open up the RAN, to open up those interfaces. And this is why, right there, because RAN can be up to 80% of the network cost. Why is that? Because you cannot mix and match with the legacy RAN. You cannot take radio from vendor A and mix it up from the software from vendor B. But what is Openrain? So, let me tell you a little story. Right now, you're looking on a screen and thinking, why is there a hamburger? So, about 5 years ago, I was trying to explain to my then 9-year-old what Mom did for work. So he asked me to explain what Open Legacy Run was, and I said, CJ, that's his name. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you cannot mix and match your meal. Now you can see my face, right? I was so nervous, I forgot to take my mask off. So, going to a restaurant, and all you can get is that meal. Mom, but I like chicken nuggets. Can I substitute them? Maybe. But the legacy vendor, RAN legacy vendor, is going to charge you an arm and a leg. Okay, Mom. But I don't like soda. How about I'll go quickly to the restaurant next door and get a milkshake? Oh, no, 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 CJ. You cannot do that with the legacy RAN. The original restaurant is not going to allow you to do it. And he went like, huh? So, 3GPP disaggregated the RAN site to allow Openrain to be born. RU, DU, CU, DU and CU software going on a COTS server, driving the RAN innovation. So mobile operators and the industry can deliver the future and connect more users. So, Openrain is not a fancy technology. Who thinks it's a fancy technology? Lift your hand. Who thinks that Openrain is just a new way of building the networks? Lift your hand. Who thinks that Openrain is just simply interoperable RAN? Yes! With Openrain, you can mix and match radios from vendor A, DU/CU software on a COTS server from vendor B, because when the interfaces are open, the possibilities are endless. So, I stole that tagline from Burger King. They're in a different industry, so don't worry. So Openrain is RAN your way. You want chicken nuggets? Go right ahead. You want that milkshake? Run to that store and get it. Mix and match. So you can build the most innovative, the most cost-effective, the most interoperable RAN. And we call it best-of-breed RAN. And once your RAN is disaggregated, you can use DevOps principles to automate it, to solve any integration challenges. So DevOps will bring you two things. Number one is automation of how your software is delivered. This is where CI/CD comes in. So you can upgrade 1,000 of sites just like that. And then the second thing is automation of any manual tasks. Because this is how you will reduce your cost. No truck rolls. Automation with AI and ML based on ORAN Alliance standards, RIC and SMO will deliver those benefits to open up the RAN. So once you disaggregate your RAN and then you automate it you can bring up more sites and make a connected impact. So what's next? What's next for Openrain? Francois was talking about the new ecosystem, regulators, governments, vendors, software and hardware, Open Alliance and 3GPP, building new specifications to make the RAN open. Open Alliance and TIP, creating blueprints and driving deployments. It is happening. It is. In the US and the UK, Openrain is a valid alternative for 5G build-outs. And now you can address any use case based on your business requirement with Openrain. Urban, rural, 4G expansion, 5G. So again, you can connect more end users, new innovative services, e-health, e-learning. Anything is possible. So let me finish my presentation with this very famous quote from Steve Jobs. Openrain movement is happening. Openrain train has left the station. Are we ready to be those crazy people to change telecom? Are we? Thank you very much.
All right. I like the burgers and fries. I'm hungry already. So let's dig into it a little bit more. Because there are so many opportunities, so many challenges, I have a global panel that will help us to really, really dissect some of the interesting things that we're seeing with respect to Openrain. And I'm going to introduce them to you one by one. As I'm introducing them, and we also have two people that are virtual, so they will also be joining us to discuss this. All right? Back to Eugenia Jordan. She's from Parallel Wireless. Please give her a round of applause. She did a fantastic job all the way to the end. Thank you, ma'am. All right. I'm introducing to you Tejas Rao. He is the Managing Director and Global Partnership of Network Connected Services at Accenture. Welcome, Tejas Rao. All right. I'm looking for him on the screen. He's coming, he's coming, he's coming. All right, thank you. Okay, next, Stephen Douglas is head of 5G strategy aspirants. Stephen is also virtual. He's going to be joining us. All right, very good. I like the music. You like the music? All right. Next, let me introduce to you Emmanuel Coulter. He's Senior Analyst, Social and Regional Research, GSMA. Emmanuel, you're welcome. Thank you very much, sir. And finally, Haitam Abdul Razak, CTO at Etisalat. Please, you're welcome, sir. All right. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, Openrain, as both Eugenia and Francois help us to frame it, is doing something innovative around the world. So from each of you, in a very short time, can you tell us why do we need Openrain? The question is, well, we have RAN, we have the big guys, we've been doing it for so long, so why do we need Openrain? Let me start with you, Eugenia.
Innovation. The market consolidated with just 3 vendors in the last few years, And when market consolidates, there's no innovation. So when there's no innovation, like with that burger place, right, the prices get very, exactly.
All right, okay.
So innovation drives the cost down.
Thank you. Emmanuel, from your perspective, from a social and research point of view, is there a need for an Open RAN?
Yes, I think I would highlight flexibility and the opportunity to mix and match services. So as Eugenia mentioned, in the past 20 years, there was a huge consolidation in the market. So, and this makes it very hard for many operators to choose. And sometimes they find themselves in a duopoly market, which could be very hard and challenging
yes.
to pick the right vendor. So,
okay. Before I go to Hitem, to our colleague from Spirent, there's been a lot in the testing, as well as how do we put this together? Tell us, why do we need Open RAN again?
Yeah, I think there's probably four key things: diversity, flexibility, choice, and, as Eugenia said, enhanced innovation. But it's not just innovation on the radio suppliers. I think there's an opportunity here for innovation in around the developer ecosystems, which can now access the radio with areas of the new Open RAN architecture, like the intelligent controller. This gives really the future opportunity for programmability of the radio. I think this is where we're going to see the huge innovation as we move out towards the 5.5G and 6G systems of the future, which are really going to require that type of innovation.
All right, thank you very much. Hitem, as a mobile operator, what is the need? I mean, you have vendors that will give you a closed network, but now we're talking about something open. Why the need? Do you see a need for that within your organization, for example?
Yeah. For us, Open RAN is a part of our cloud-native network transformation. We did many activities starting 2016 on the core network, on many of our domains, and access was an important and a very important cornerstone. So we have to virtualize the GPON network and the mobile network. And for us, it's an opportunity, as Francois said, more than only cost, because we have to open a mature API to digital enclosures and to our enterprises who are seeking for a lot of solutions to optimize and to build digital cities and smart cities. So we have to be more innovative, and without depending on software, we cannot do that. The second option, the second idea is, for every bit we are transmitting, there is a lot of cost in traditional, not only RAN vendor, in the OSS. Many solutions and probes, CM solutions to operate the network. And this is putting a huge cost, more than the RAN cost, on every bit we transform. So our idea was to convert the network into a fully autonomous network, and splitting software from hardware is a fundamental piece, and we have to ensure that the entire software manage the entire operation of the network. And that's why our A3 platform we are building today include Open RAN capabilities, from integration to planning to operation to optimization, up to the field force on ground. That's basically the major benefits for our industry.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And so to Tejas, when you look at integration, automation, orchestration, do we need another Open RAN? I mean, is it going to create more complexity, or you see simplicity from what you and your company will be able to introduce?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the challenge with Open RAN is going to be in making sure that all of these various components of the software are going to get integrated properly, right? And so here, I think as we think about the opportunity, there's, we talked about the fundamental cost of accelerating network deployment is both on the deployment side and the operation side, right? And the benefits of going to Open RAN is not only, as all of these people talked about, reducing the cost of deployment, but here's an opportunity to leverage data and analytics to really drive a zero-touch capability on the operations side. So I think long-term adoption of Open RAN is fundamentally about accelerating the network deployment by reducing the cost. And excellent. I think as we think about it, the complexity really is going to be around the integration. Right? Now that you have a multi-vendor ecosystem, how do you really make sure that you have all of the analytics in terms of an operation and an autonomous system to be able to pinpoint where the performance issues are going to be? Mm-hmm. So I think, as we look at the advanced tooling, advanced data analytics, the machine learning, the AI, fundamentally, it's all about making sure that you have this continuous integration, deployment, and testing capability in your network and driving towards a zero-touch capability in the operations side.
Wonderful. If you look at the way we're attacking Open RAN from this panel, there's a method to the madness. We've gone from parallel wireless, who is in the business of building networks, to analysts, to the mobile operator, to equipment vendors like Fujitsu, Accenture, who looks like automation. Now, I want to begin to dig into it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And so to Emmanuel, how is the ecosystem evolving? Do you see a role for regulators? Do you see a role for governments? Do you see a role for policies? How is the hyperscalers, how are they fitting into this? Please, give us a view.
Thank you for that. So I think as Eugene has started, and there was a huge amount of change in the industry in the past 10 years. So we had some research related to market share, vendor market share. And I think 2 years ago, the top 3 vendor had roughly 60% in the global market. And so we could see a huge amount of consolidation from Alcatel-Lucent, from Siemens, and so on and so on. And now we have this less fragmented market. And vendors, sorry, as you asked about the responsibility for regulators, there is a huge, because openness itself, it's not always a success story. So there are risks and there is a lot of work we need to do. And there is some area where Open RAN simply doesn't work or openness, like still smartphones are still a closed ecosystem, and Google tried to open it up and make it modular to put the batteries and the camera from different, it didn't work. So there is a huge amount of need from regulators, and it's a regional issue. So if we include in the last 2 years the ban of certain vendors, and this also makes it very political as well. And last but not least, also we have new players, and as you mentioned, I think in your presentation, like Facebook and Google is doing the subsea cables and so on. So the complete supply chain is realigning, and for operators, I think that's a huge task to go with the winner. So you always want to pick the right vendor. You want to go with the one who will be exist and successful in the next 5 years as well. So I think there will be another very interesting 5 years as well from now. So
all right. Thank you, Mano. Thank you. So to Eugenia and Haitem, obviously there will be challenges and there will be opportunities. Can you help us to articulate that? I want to start with you, Eugenia.
Thank you. So before I came to Barcelona, I ran 2 LinkedIn polls. And one of them was what my LinkedIn followers think about challenges. And the second one was what they think about opportunities of Open RAN. And the challenge that people saw is like Emmanuel was saying, is the ecosystem that needs to grow, align, and evolve. And as Haitem and I we were talking about the session, where there are challenges, right? There are opportunities. Mm-hmm. So parallel wireless wouldn't have been here if the interfaces didn't start opening up, if the industry didn't move towards software and hardware disaggregation. So the biggest opportunity is we're going to get more great vendors, more choices.
I see. Thank you. So you can see this is opening up businesses for vendors. But if we leave it there, then we'll miss something else, because not only is someone selling, but someone is also buying. So Haitem, what are the benefits for the operators, for example?
I mean, as I mentioned initially, the benefits are many and the opportunities are many. Cost is for sure an important item, but it depends whether you are a greenfield or brownfield. So for a greenfield, it's much easier because they are building from scratch. For a brownfield, you have to select. Most of us have already deployed our 4G, and now we are starting with 5G. You want to do it NSA or SA, you want to choose on a spectrum. However, we deployed Openrain. We started with Openrain in 2019. We deployed some sites, and some of the benefits and challenges. First, benefits, early movers, you learn a lot. You have to have the pick and choose, as Regina said. It's not so easy if you don't have a good fiber penetration.
Correct.
You don't have a mature private cloud or cloud infrastructure at the edge. You have a combination between front haul, mid haul, and back haul. So this combination is not easy without a solid infrastructure. But the interoperability also, we learned a lot in the interoperability. If there is an outage or a fault, you have to follow with 3-4 vendors. Today it's enclosed. Cost, there is a benefit. However, again, many operators spend a lot of time in discussing how to make a viable business case, and they are turning and turning around. I believe early adopters and champions, if they believe that software is the way to go, they have to go, because most of the new technologies in the first 3 years, they will cost you more. That happened for us in virtualization of packet core and many core functions. The initial deployment will cost you more because you have a dual investment, but you have to have a long-term vision, and I think the digital society is waiting for us to give them mature APIs to manage their own infrastructure, to manage their own smart solutions, and I totally agree, it's a great opportunity.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I want to come back to Stephen from a instrumentation point of view. What would you consider the biggest challenge that a company had to solve to help the adoption of Openrain? Stephen.
I think at the moment what we're seeing, certainly, Femi, is there's probably 3 dominant areas across the market. I mean, first is, as our colleagues have said, this interoperability, but also conformance testing towards the new open front haul interface. And we're certainly seeing a lot of focus towards, aligning vendor interpretations of the standards, making sure that they align together, but also around areas like synchronization, which is critical now when you have a multi-vendor and distributed capabilities of the radio. The second, I think, critical area that we're seeing certainly heightened, demand from the service providers is the performance testing side of it, is to really make sure not only individual components, but the end-to-end system can scale to provide the levels of robustness and parity required for that sort of high capacity future sort of large scale metro types of deployments. And we're seeing sort of that, I think, an added dimension to that around the whole virtual open cloud architectures, which potentially the distributed or the central units are going to be hosted on, to make sure that that can scale and provides the levels of robustness. And then the third area, which is, it's something we saw come in with the 5G new core network, and we're certainly seeing it now with Open Virtual RAN, is really the increased frequency of releases, patches, and configuration changes that are occurring from the multiple vendors. This has led to many of the service providers starting to look to implement DevOps types of continuous testing processes and environments. Basically establishing an automated pipeline process to try to handle that velocity and volume of releases coming from the vendors, but also creating sort of a virtuous feedback loop to the vendor community to create sort of continuous collaboration to resolve those issues and really maintain the agility and the speed to prove out Open RAN. And I think these are sort of the areas that we're sort of seeing as the dominant sort of requirements if we're going to take Open RAN from sort of the ambition and the opportunity that everyone's talked about to the reality where it will be able to be deployed and used in large scale sort of metro type deployments.
Thank you, Stephen. Because you're right. As you bring in more and more components, you still want to ensure the integrity of the RAN itself. You want to make sure that KPIs are still being met, interoperability is still going on, and so a lot of instrumentation needs to happen. So let me go back to Tejas, for example. I'm sure there are still challenges, there are things to be solved, for example, around automation, around power consumption, around change management. What are you looking at in the industry that are being considered as roadblocks to Open RAN deployment?
Yeah, thanks, Femi. I mean, I think from our perspective, what we see out there in terms of this next generation of network deployment is really trying to help our operators accelerate their next gen evolution of the network. And this really requires more long-term planning around design and deployment. Right? Designing the 5G RAN requires really fundamental advanced planning for a range of new features, right? As well as Haitham mentioned, right? I mean, if we're talking greenfield, it's a little easier because there is nothing else to think about. It's just a brand new network. But when you have the previous generations of the network already in place, the challenge for growing and maintaining a network while advancing to Open RAN is pretty cumbersome. And so I think looking at both the long-term planning, using data and analytics to really define how you're going to deploy this technology over a longer period of time is kind of one aspect of it. Second, we also mentioned the fact that as the RAN gets disaggregated, creating an operational mindset around it to make sure that those KPIs that we're defining for performance, scale, and growth are going to be able to be met, and really making sure that we fine-tune the tooling around identifying where those performance issues are and being able to identify which vendor is responsible for ultimately providing a fix associated with that issue, right? So as we think about it, we talked a lot about automation, but I think automation goes all the way from initial planning to deployment to fundamentally making sure that the operational components are taken care of day one.
Thank you very much. So, go ahead, Manuel.
Just one thing I would like to add for the risk, and I believe it's an opportunity and a threat for everyone. But I think not just the technical risk and system integration, but also sometimes the customer service to have these operators to take responsibility for the whole project. And we had research recently in GSM intelligence related to risk and threats, and there are not just technical but also business-wise risk, how you can and there are specific things which is even for smaller operators with less subscribers, which sometimes they still sometimes prefer to have turnkey solutions. So I believe that this kind of Open RAN became like one of the most important thing in the industry, I believe, but we need to be obviously cautious and understand the risks and threats behind as well to go through and develop it.
Okay. So Eugenia, from a vendor point of view, what do you see as roadblocks to the adoption of Open RAN?
So I just want to build on what everyone
what he just said.
Yeah.
Sure.
So obviously mobile operators want one neck to choke, right? Mm-hmm. Mobile operators want one neck to choke when you integrate your network. You don't want to go to multiple vendors, right? You want to have one.
It depends. Not straight answer. But I mean the existing vendors, they are the reason of success of most our operations. So we build a lot. However, we believe we should partner with the existing vendors in changing the operating model. It's not easy for them because, but I think partnership is very important, and we are working with the existing vendor to see how we can push them as well. And it's an ecosystem. We have to partner with many of our vendors to move, because there is a lot of experience they have in the RAN area as well.
Okay.
So, and I think that's the biggest challenge is figuring out the new roles, right? So what the ecosystem is going to look like. Who's going to deliver software and hardware, right? So, and that's a challenge, and it's a growing pain, right? So it's like when you have a child, the child needs to first crawl, then run,
Correct.
and then, you know, going to college, right? So I think right now, RAN is probably like my teenager, you know, ready to graduate from high school, right? So, but we're there. The ecosystem is there. So the biggest challenge is just keep pushing. Like Hatim was saying, just keep pushing, right? And working and figuring it out. So, and it's a biggest challenge for vendors because it's figuring out how to do it new way.
I see. That's very interesting. So Emmanuel, from a research point of view, what are the next trends? What do you see as we look at the trajectory of Open RAN? Where are we going to see the major impacts in terms of deployment? Will that be in rural? Will that be in urban? Where are the near-term opportunities for deployment?
Thanks, Sam. It's a very, very good question. So we actually have an Open RAN map as well, and we identify different kind of deployment, and there are some rural, ultra-rural deployments as well. So it's a very, very diverse picture. So you can see in mature markets, ultra-dense areas, and you can also see developing markets, rural areas. So the picture is very diverse, and also the reason why operators deploying is also very diverse. And as mentioned, we also had a network transformation survey, and the first result just come out, and we identified the main drivers and main bottlenecks. More than 100 operators answered this survey, and it's also very diverse pictures. And it shouldn't be a surprise. Every mobile network is very different.
Yeah.
You have a different political climate,
Right.
different size of market, different ARPU, and so on and so on. So I think openness can be an option basically everywhere. I believe it could be an option. Still will be a lot of operators who is still preferring a turnkey solution for several reasons, and also depends on the available vendors in your market. So I think it's evolving in a different pace in different regions. But as an answer for your question, it's everywhere. So
Okay, that's very good. So Tejas, I want to come back to you with the same question, right? When you look at the terrain, where do you see the trends with respect to deployment? Is that only greenfield, brownfield? Is it dense? Is it urban? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the next 2 years, I would say, except for some greenfield or special cases, most of the deployment traditionally for mobile operators is going to be, I think, starting with rural. And then over the next, I would say 2 to 3 years, moving more into the urban. And there are a couple of reasons, right? One, we talked a lot about, I mean, we're so heavily reliant on the resilience of our wireless networks, of the broadband capabilities, right? That we need to kind of make sure that we've got all of this automation and continuous integration, deployment, testing in place, and using kind of the rural sites as an initial starting point makes a lot of sense. I think the other reason is also, as we think about, you know, one of the things we don't talk about is we've been really good about deploying 3G, 4G networks with the operators, with the network ecosystem. But fundamentally, there's still a legacy culture and a legacy operating model. As we move into this new paradigm, there's still a reskilling of the talent that's required to really drive to the next generation of the operating model. So embracing kind of that change is going to take a little bit of time to make sure that we move not only the technology forward, but we also have to move the organization forward.
Oh, that's very interesting. So I want to come back to your item. What it just highlighted is a shift in the workforce from those that are just RAN focused, RAN specific, to now, you know, IT focused, software focused, really retooling your network. Are you seeing that in your organization as a as a network operator, for example?
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned in Etisalat, our vision by end of 2022 will have fully autonomous network. That means there is no single employee to operate the network. And accordingly, we have to start in transforming the capabilities early enough, because we adopted our cloud and virtualization program in 2015. And for sure, we'll have resistance, we'll have capability and reskilling. But because we started early, we are getting benefit now. So for Openrain, I highly suggest every operator should do it, to learn it, to explore, to learn the interoperability issues and to build the system. For a brownfield operator, many people will, to put it in ruler has no traffic.
Yes.
It's the cost of redeployment, but many of them will put it in ruler and take their legacy equipment and put it in dense.
Right.
For us, we are focusing on 5G because our 5G strategy is very strong, and mainly 5G SA, as I was talking to the colleagues. So we have a clear strategy, and you don't have to do it on the entire network. You could do it on a spectrum level. You could do it on a certain spectrum or a certain layer.
I see.
But my main advice is if you didn't start, you should do it, even part of your network, because there is no way it will not happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you. My last question to Stephen. With the traditional RAN, you had your test equipment. You had everything in place. So are you having to develop new test equipment to support Open RAN, or you are still using your legacy equipment from a testing point of view?
I think the testing world has evolved quite a bit over the last number of years. I think there is new, certainly, test equipment. I think it's primarily about automation of testing, to allow that level of agility. But also, as my colleague said, it doesn't stop at the testing side of it. It's how you actually then take that and allow that into the operational domain. And something we're seeing at the moment is something called continuous testing in the live networks, where there's methodologies now to allow the networks to be, in essence, to be tested during live operation to try to identify issues or faults as rapidly as possible and bring that back into in essence, the testing environments. We sort of see this as the future, it's part of the way the networks are evolving, so that they will gradually become, in essence, a cognitive sort of network. And I think continuous testing is going to be a critical part of that. But I mean, Femi, just to the last sort of point, when you were asking, I mean, what we're seeing with a lot of the service providers at the moment, at least our customers, is that they're probably going to start small deployments at the beginning here, in less dense, lower capacity areas. Now, rural is one, but I would highlight also indoor and private networks are certainly candidates that we're seeing at the moment in the market. Metro probably is a year or so out, simply because of the work still to be concluded on massive MIMO technologies for the 5G mid-bands. But the one area I would just throw into the mix, just for the audience and for my panelists here, it's just also the cloud providers that are coming into it and looking at Open RAN as well as an operational model of choice towards the private networks. And that may be another disruption and future of where we see Open RAN going in the near term.
Thank you very much. Just to wrap up, Open RAN is open for business.
Yes.
The train has left the building. We're seeing a lot of deployment opportunities globally. So it's not just regional. We want to talk about Japan, Europe, the Middle East. New ecosystems are being formed. Multiple vendors have been introduced. Multiple companies and innovation are coming up because of this new thing that is called Open RAN. So I want to thank the panel that has helped us to frame this. Haitem from Etisalat, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Emmanuel, thank you very much from a research point of view. Eugene, all the way from US, thank you for joining. Tejas, it's good to see you, as well as Stephen. So please help me to give them a round of applause. Thank you.